Welcome to the Lost Vet podcast, where we are helping you to get back to your passion and purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Melodie Chan, and in today's episode, I have Rob Marr back as a guest. And if you want to know how to not be hit in the head with the boomerang of other people's problems, keep on listening. Rob, welcome back.
Hello. Good to see you again.
Always good to have you on. I'm chuckling at today's conversation that I have in mind, in the sense of in vet school. I have to share this story. My roommate and I would we would used to joke, and we would get to this point where you'd have so many people coming to you with their issues or their problems or things they wanted you to fix, and we used to joke we would just have a sweatshirt that would just say NMP, and it would just be if we got overwhelmed with people coming to us with their issues, we would just show them the sweatshirt NMP, which would stand for not my problem.
Love
But
it.
it's easier said than done, and I am guilty of that as somebody who's managed teams, managed people, where that advice monster just rears its head, and I want to just fix things for people because I'm a fixer, I'm a doer. And I know one of the themes that has consistently come up from talking to other managers, talking to you, is why are people owning other people's problems? And how do we, why is that something we should consciously think about moving away from?
It's an interesting topic, isn't it? It's a really interesting topic because I think there's a few bits which all conflate into this overall sense of responsibility that we have for other people's. I have a bit of a theory on it, and it's not been kind of tested by any science or anything, but I suppose like an observational theory that certainly from a leadership perspective anyway, when we've used the term a lot in the past, I know, performance punishment, but when we gain or gather this new responsibility, or we in a way inherit it as a veterinarian coming into a business, or we're a technician with that kind of perceived seniority of kind of the qualification and the license and so on, for your skills. I think we just end up with this job of responsibility. We end up with this kind of like perceived, well, you're in charge, or you're the vet, or you're the tech, or you're the practice manager. Why? Just give me the answer, please. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think what it can feed into is the wrong lessons being learned, because, and I would say maybe some of the practice managers and techs that turn into practice managers or owners that are vets, I think you'll really feel this. Like, it feels like it's your job to give answers, right? It feels like, well, I'm in charge. I shouldn't I know the answer to this? Shouldn't I be telling people what to do? Isn't that my responsibility? And I think this is where it's like a fundamental mindset shift, where let's think about, well, what is your job in a leadership position in a busy veterinary practice, or even any business, right? What is your actual responsibility? Now, there's two directions that conversation go, right? One is as a manager, right, which is to make sure all the tasks get done. And I think that's a very kind of typical approach. I think it's certainly the way I was brought up, which is about hard work, about getting stuff done, about making sure we do everything we say we're going to do. There's anything wrong with those ideas, but I think that's a narrative, and I think it tends to lead to kind of a very limited, linear ABC. Do your job. A good day is doing all the work. A bad day is not doing all the work. It leads to working longer hours. It leads to excessive levels of stress. It leads to compensating sometimes for poor performance. So when other people are not doing what they're supposed to do, when the task is king or queen in that situation, we'll still go and do the task because the work's got to get done, right? So I think there's a few things which feed into this idea of the psychological ownership of other people's problems. It's not that we necessarily want to have the ownership of other people's problems, but it's the all hail the task attitude.
Mm.
It's we need to get all the work done attitude, which feeds it a little bit. And then we end up quite often in a bit of a spoiling situation where because we do that, then it creates more of that. And then the more we do that, the more it creates more of that. And then we end up in this kind of like negative loop where what we want people to do is take initiative, get on with the things they're supposed to do, make sure they finish things properly, honor their deadlines, like do their jobs, right? But when the job is the priority or the task is a priority, then if they don't do that, then it often feels like it's our responsibility to step in. And it's kind of, that's not my problem, but I'm going to do it anyway because we've got to do it. So when we think about kind of a movement away from that, I think this is a really interesting conversation around what the role of a leader is in that business environment, as I've mentioned. So I would position that that role is actually to develop people's skills and competencies as the primary job. And for a lot of people moving, especially if you've been promoted into that role of leader, which I know many of you listening will have been, you kind of you almost have still the responsibility of your old job, and now you've got this new leadership job as well. And you end up kind of trying to do both, and often from people talking to me, I often feel like you don't do either of them as well as you'd like to, especially if you're kind of a type A, bit of a perfectionist, you like to get things done right, and then you're unable to do that. It's like a double stress. It's the stress of not doing it, and it's the stress of failure that
Mm-hmm.
you were unable to compensate. So even if you don't get the work, you still have to live with the guilt. So we own other people's problems. Really, perhaps my theory anyway, unproven theory, is that in a way it's like a justification of our value. So like trying to show how much we're worth, showing how much value we can bring to a situation, because that's what we've learned. We've become maybe successful. We become promoted because we worked our butts off, right? So now
Yep.
we've got this opportunity. We showed how good we were doing all of the work, and now we suddenly get all the extra work, and it's like it's too much. So I think let's think about that role change, and I think this is maybe where the point of difference can be today in your listeners, perhaps, is that once you move into that leadership role, or if you're in that role, you have to look at the work differently. You have to think about the work as a tool to teach. You've got to think about how do I use this work to help people develop, not all hail the work. I need to make sure the work gets done. Because it's the people themselves that are actually doing the work. So your role shifts. And I think this is the key. The role shifts from laboriousness, like just working hard and physical labor, and it moves into more of an intellectual pursuit, which is thinking about the business, thinking about people's development, thinking about how they're learning and growing, about how capable they are, how confident they are in their jobs, and then finding ways to support and supplement that so they become more capable, more confident, and then keeping going on that, more capable, more confident, growing the whole team. And one of my favorite phrases, and like the rising tide lifting all boats.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, that inflection point where you no longer are like the laborious one, your job is then for everyone, but you can't do everyone's job for you. But if we still approach that new job with our old behaviors, like being busy and laborious, we will try and do everyone's job. So it's actually more about that shift into how do I use the jobs to get everyone moving, everyone lifting, the whole business growing together, not how do I compensate for other people's performance.
Because I think that that piece too of when people come when people come to you with a problem that they want you to fix or they want you to solve, um, I think it's often easy to say, well, why don't you try this or why don't you do
Yeah,
that as the reflex, because you feel like they're coming to you with, here's my issue,
yeah,
open question sentence, and expecting you to throw that back at them
yeah,
with an answer. And what I'm hearing you say is you can do that lob and volley in perpetuum because it now becomes a learned behavior.
Exactly.
from
You create a dependency because it's like you go where the food is, right? So if someone keeps feeding you, you keep going back for the food. It's like Pavlov's dog. We just respond to it in a very consistent fashion. We actually unconsciously teach the very thing we want to avoid, which is absolute codependency or dependency on us to be the provision or the provider of morsels, right? And it's like these bits of advice turn into bloody boomerangs. So we send them off with the advice, and they come back. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, the till roll is in the cupboard. It's not in the cupboard. Okay, then try under the stairs. And it's like you end up in this ridiculous kind of like feeding kind of way, like kind of, oh, we'll try over here and maybe think about this and do it. And what happens is all we're doing is we're just sending it out for it to come back. Even if they do execute exactly. Yeah, I said that to her. Yeah, she didn't like it. So what do I do now?
yeah.
It's like, ah.
Well,
So,
and I think it's that piece of accountability, because
yeah,
now that person that's come to you with the problem, if you're providing them with the direction or the advice, they are now absolved of accountability, and they can go and come back and say, see, well, it didn't work. Whereas I can see if you flip it, then, and again, I'm also supportive of providing options and
yeah.
ideas, but the person coming to you ultimately is accountable for, what do you want to do? And they need to own that. And I think as that relationship develops, where they own the decision, and whatever the outcome is, it's on them. You're absolutely there to help develop and support, but you need them to um, be able to stand on their own 2 feet.
Well, it's interesting you've given that example about providing examples or advice, because we've talked about mentoring and coaching before. So advice is very much a trope of mentoring, but you're right that they need to choose. So an appropriate way of doing that is that mentoring to coaching piece. Remember, we talk about utilization of all these things at the same time. So you can say, look, here's 3 ideas that my experience have given me over the years. You could try A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about your situation. Which one of those ideas feels right for you? Or do you think you need a fourth or fifth one that you can come up with? Right.
Yeah.
So it's okay to give advice, but it's not okay to own it. Like, because, it's like, here are some options, but I want you to choose the one and you to think it through why you're choosing that. Otherwise, we do end up in this constant cycle back. It's exhausting, because like it can lead you. And I know I was kind of joking about the till roll, but like that is the kind of banality, like the level of discourse that can actually go on a daily basis, because it's like, oh my God, like, why don't people know where the freaking till roll is? It's
Yeah.
like, they do. It's just that they're more used to you telling them what to do than they are going and finding the till roll. We've robbed them of taking initiative. So, that's where we can get into, and I would advise you go back and have a listen, dear listener, for our coaching conversation about how we can use directional, non-directional tools like questions to help people figure these things out for themselves. So it allows you to go back to your jumper, the NMP. It's not my problem. People's development is your problem. Okay, answering their specific problems is not your problem. Solving their problems for them is not your problem. Doing their job for them is not your problem. That's their job. It's their job to do, figure out, and solve. Your job is to support them in their development. It's 2 different mindsets altogether. And the sooner you can shift to developing their competencies and confidences, the quicker you'll move away from that situation. And you will be able to think, this is not my problem. It's okay.
That's great. Mind Shifts. Mind Shifts by Rob Marr.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. And look forward to another conversation soon.
Thank you, Mel. Great to see you.
And there you have it. There is your mental gymnastics exercise for the day. After this conversation with Rob, I think it causes us to take a moment to pause and reflect on, are we focusing too much on the task and getting tasks done? Or can we take a step back, shift our mindset, and think about, how do we help develop people? Help develop people and make them grow. And again, when you've got a team or people on your team that constantly come back and forth to you with a question or their problem. And if you continue to just provide, here, try this, here, try that, here, try this, then it's this boomerang effect where they'll try it, they won't have owned it, they'll come back, and they'll just put it back to you to help them solve it. And so I like this idea of take a moment and think about how you are coaching and mentoring. You may again have to provide some suggestions on how to solve a problem that may be presented to you, but ultimately give it to the person that's coming to you to solve it on their own, to take ownership, to brainstorm, to make decisions, to try things, to fail at things, and see what works for them. And I think if you exercise this approach as a leader, but even colleague to colleague, because sometimes you might feel like, oh, why am I always the person that everyone comes to on the team, that comes to me with all their problems? I'm always trying to fix things for people. You will find if you take this approach and just gently pass it back to them or directly pass it back to them, that you no longer have to carry that load. And I think that's a really important message and an important thing to just really feel and sit with in thinking about not having to carry other people's issues. And so, again, we can care, but not have to carry. Care, don't carry. And making sure that you're there to support people, but know that ultimately they need to own their situations. They need to own how they're going to do things. And you can absolutely be there to support and coach and guide. I hope you found this helpful. Until next time.